Hello A&P students, my name is Eric Barn and I'm a UTA on the A&P team, and today I'm going to be teaching you guys about directional terms and planes of motion. So I was having a little trouble the first time I learned all these, so what I did was I paired them up into opposites. So for example, I paired up superior and inferior. Superior meaning above and inferior below. And I remember those because they are opposites of each other and I paired them up like that. So next we have ventral and dorsal, and a good way to remember dorsal is like the dorsal fin of a dolphin, and the dorsal fin is on the back. So dorsal is going to be towards the back, ventral would be towards the front. So if you look at the man on the left in this picture, you're looking at him from a ventral point of view, and on the right a dorsal point of view. Then next we have medial, lateral, and intermediate. So medial meaning towards the midline, and the way I like to remember this is medial is kind of like middle, and that's towards the midline. And then lateral is going to be the opposite, away from the midline. And then intermediate, I like to remember as in between medial and lateral, and that's what intermediate means, is in between. Then the next two are kind of tricky, so I'm going to give you guys a couple examples, and these two are proximal and distal. So say we're looking at the arm here, and the point of attachment for the arm is at the shoulder. So let me get my pencil here. Alrighty. And so this right here is going to be your point of attachment for your arm at the shoulder. And say we're looking at your elbow right here and your wrist right here. Now, proximal means closer to the point of attachment. So if we were using proximal in a sentence here, you would say the elbow is proximal to the wrist because the elbow is closer to the point of attachment here at the shoulder. And if you wanted to use distal, you could say the wrist is distal to the elbow. And I'll give you guys one more example just in case you didn't get it right there. So we're going to look at the leg, and the point of attachment for the leg is right about here at the hip. So if you look at the knee right here and the ankle, we can say that the knee is proximal to the ankle because it is closer to the point of attachment at the hip. And then if you wanted to use distal, you could say the ankle is distal to the knee. Now moving on to the next two terms that I grouped together are prone and supine. Now the way I remember prone is like a push-up position, so stomach pointing towards the ground. And then supine is just going to be the opposite of prone, so stomach up. So if you look at this picture again and you imagine he's laying down, on the left he would be in a supine position, and then on the right he would be in a prone position. Then the next two terms that I grouped up were cephalic and caudal. Now the way I remembered cephalic was I googled it and I learned that it meant head in a different language. So cephalic is going to be meaning towards the head, and then caudal will just mean away from the head because it's the opposite. And then your last two are anterior and posterior. These are a lot like ventral and dorsal. And anterior is going to be meaning towards the front of your body, and posterior is towards the back of your body. So if you look at the picture again, on the left you're looking from an anterior view, and on the right from a posterior view. Now moving on to planes of motion. Let me change the slide. So if you look on the left here, you have your sagittal plane. It's going to cut you into left and right. So in this picture, it's showing the mid-sagittal plane. There's also something called the parasagittal plane. Now the parasagittal plane is just any plane parallel to that one that still cuts the body into left and right. So the mid-sagittal will cut equally into left and right, and the parasagittal will cut unequally into left and right. The next plane, or also in the sagittal plane, you can perform flexion and extension. So for example, a bicep curl would be in the sagittal plane. Then moving on to the frontal plane, on the far right here, it's going to cut you into anterior and posterior. And in this plane, we perform abduction and adduction. So, for example, a lateral raise would be done in the frontal plane. And finally, we have the horizontal or transverse plane right here. So the transverse plane or horizontal will cut you into superior and inferior. And in this plane, you perform circumduction or rotation. So anything like a Russian twist would be done in the horizontal or transverse plane. That was all I wanted to explain to you guys today. So thank you for listening and have a great rest of your day.